Thank you very much, and don't forget, this video was made possible by my patrons on Patreon. Want to support me? The link is on the screen. Sincerely yours, VisualPony, and enjoy this audiobook. Silver Cross in The Strings Come Together. Baltimore. It had been a while since I had been here last. It was weird to actually see what was left of the city after that fight almost a year ago. The new Trotland Yard had its hoofs full of work, while my department was running back and forth, trying to find out more about our enemy. Me? I didn't go on a single mission since then. The doctors had forbidden me to even train for most of that time, leaving me stranded behind my desk for most of the time. In a wheelchair, no less. Now that I could finally walk on my own again, I was eager to finish this. Broken Cross was still out there, and I was dead set on utterly destroying her. Trotting through the ruins of the city, I saw that some of the buildings had been partially melted by my last fight here. Suddenly, I kind of understood what it must have been like during the last changeling invasion. Cities devoid of ponies. Whole landscapes burned due to the dark magic that was being used to fight. As I looked at a partially rotted piece of newspaper that was stuck under a dustbin next to one of the many empty apartment complexes, I sighed heavily. The headline spoke of the possibility of a war with Zebrica and that the army was still looking for more volunteers to defend the homeland. Looking back on the happenings over this last year, it was a good thing that I was working with Berrywing. As council elder, she had at least some influence. Equestria had extended the hoof of friendship towards the zebras, dragons, and griffins. The latter two had almost ripped it clean off, mind you, but at least the fighting had stopped for now. Of course, every pony knew that this peace was very fragile, but the citizens, myself included, were relieved by it. We had been at war for so long that we had forgotten what it felt to be at peace. But then, we were still at war. Maybe not a war to defend our borders, but one that was threatening the existence of the whole world. The nightmare had not awoken yet, but disturbances were happening all over the country. Changelings acting up and attacking pedestrians was, sad as it was, only considered a mild offense these days. No, the much bigger problem was that 3 more major cities had gone dark. The military was virtually helpless since they weren't trained to fight changelings. The insectoid creatures could infiltrate their ranks easily since they usually lacked unicorns with revelation spells in their units. On my way to my destination, I came across the ruins of a Donut Joe's and couldn't help but smile a little. Oh, what I wouldn't give for a fresh chocolate donut with vanilla filling and extra sprinkles right now. Sweet Potato nudged the back of my head with a hoof from her usual place on my back. Soon I wouldn't be able to carry her around like that, since the filly was growing faster than she had any right to be. The key which she had found in my personal belongings was tucked away in one of my uniform's pockets. "What is it, sweetie? Are you hungry?" I asked, trying to sound casual. In reality, however, I felt miserable. Not too far from where I was standing now was a place where I had shot dancing. My legs quivered at the thought of having to pass the place on my way. Maybe I could go around it? Find another way to get where I needed to be? A pair of tiny hoofs embraced my neck from behind. Sweet Potato was, as always, sensing that something was on my mind, even though she didn't exactly know what it was. She still didn't understand most things ponies tried to tell her, but she was very sensitive when it came to other ponies' feelings. I reached up with one of my forelegs to stroke her hoof for a moment before continuing. I appreciated the gesture. Even with her disability, Sweet Potato knew that Dancing Cross was gone forever. Maybe she didn't understand why the nice mare that had always brought her toys or played with her for hours on end when she had come over was gone, but she knew. It was one of the reasons I had to remove all photographs of dancing from my living quarters. Sweet would, upon seeing them, break out in tears and would be unconsolable for hours. Finally, I stood in front of the crumbling ruins of the building that had once been marked as one of Equestria's oldest. The City Bank of Baltimore. As far as I knew, everything inside had been left untouched. The once bustling city was now nothing more than a ghost town. I stepped inside, seeing that the main hall of the building was surprisingly intact. There were bits scattered around everywhere, and from all the shifting on my back, I knew that Sweet Potato was looking around curiously. Getting down to the personal vaults was tricky. There was no electricity left here since the government had decided it was a waste of power to supply a dead city. They were right, of course, but right then I could have used a little bit of energy to make the automatic doors swing open. The manager of the Equestrian Central Bank had provided me with a keycard and everything. The little plastic card was useless now, and I had to melt the door away with my cross to get through. Sweet didn't like the heat, but didn't flinch away as I used my heat shield to burn through the metal. I was now much better at manipulating this particular ability together with some others that absorbing Celestia's essence into my cross had given me. For once though, the Elecon of the Sun was utterly silent. Usually she would chatter on and on about one topic or another, but ever since I had set out to come here, she had been dead silent. It suited me just fine. I needed to do this. You may ask yourself why I was here and how I knew that the key Dancing had dropped so long ago belonged to one of the personal vaults. Well, the answer to that question was rather odd, to be honest. A week earlier I had received a letter. A letter from Dancing Cross. It was a timed delivery and had been in storage with the Equestrian Mail Service for almost 200 years. I didn't even want to imagine the fee to get a letter delivered 200 years after you wrote it. On the other hoof, my current salary was not half bad. I might actually have been able to pull something like that myself if I knew the name of any pony that would live in 200 years. The letter had not contained much. Only the address of the bank and the number of a vault. Vault number 44-67-117-BU-69. According to the records I had accessed in the central bank's archives, this particular vault had been rented by none other than my sister in Destiny and paid for with 50,000 bits in advance, which translated in a storage time of roughly 300 years. The personal storage area was almost dust-free. The maintenance spells seemed to be still in effect down here, but the few spots of dust and the cracks in the walls showed me that they were definitely weakening. I found Dancing's vault at the farthest end of the corridor. It was a heavy door with an enchanted lock. The key I had brought along unlocked it for me, and the door swung open on its own, even without power. Magic, I guessed. The expansive room inside was empty? No, not quite. I could have stored most of my belongings in this vault, but there was only a very small wooden box in there. I felt a sense of dread wash over me as I trotted towards it. This had been left for me by Dancing. She wouldn't have done that if she hadn't thought of it as important, which was just another reason that I had to do this. Tears began to roll down my face as I remembered those last moments. How I had held her, her unseeing eye looking at me with nothing but joy and love. The moment she had vanished and returned to her own time period. My hoof nudged the box open, making the lid fall onto the floor behind it. The flashlight I had brought with me really proved useful down here, and I shone it into the box, revealing two items. The first was a folded up piece of paper. The other, a silver cross. I sat down hard on my rump and stared at it for the longest time. So that had been why she didn't have it with her when Broken had attacked her. She had locked it up here so Broken couldn't get her grubby hoofs on it. It was why, she had died by my hoofs. The tears were flowing freely now, and Sweet Potato, who had rolled off my back when I had slumped down unexpectedly, came around to look at me while I sobbed. She reminded me so much of Dancing that it hurt to look into those amber eyes of hers. My daughter hugged me tightly and began to cry with me as my hoof reached out to touch the cross in the box. A moment later, a brilliant white light had engulfed the both of us and the cadence cross was gone, absorbed into my own. To my shock and horror though, Sweet Potato was nowhere to be seen either. I called out her name and shone my flashlight into every corner of the vault, but she was gone. Then I looked down to my cross to check. Yes, the right arm of my cross now bore the heart symbol of the cadence cross. But where had my daughter gone? What kind of foul magic was this? Ever since I had adopted her, the filly was the only constant in my life, and now she was simply gone? Why? How? I didn't understand it. Didn't understand it at all, as my body was, once again, shaken by sobs. It was then that the light of my flashlight illuminated the folded piece of paper once more. Taking a deep breath, my hoofs still shaking, I reached out to it in the hopes that there would be an explanation for all of this. There was, but not one that I had expected or liked. It was another letter, left for me by Dancing Cross. By Sweet Potato? My dear brother in destiny, if you are reading these lines, then I have failed to pass my cross on to you in time. For that, I apologize. I am sure that you have many questions, but I have only a limited amount of time to try and explain everything to you as the best I can. The name I was born with was, in fact, not Dancing Cross. I was born in your era, several years after you. My original name was Sweet Potato Pie, and I grew up in an orphanage until a very kind mare adopted me. She cared for me and protected me from bad ponies. My memories of that time are hazy at best, so I cannot tell you all the details. All I know is that I was injured. The Cadence Cross, one of two who allow their bearers to travel in time willingly, has the ability to heal almost any wound as long as their bearer is not dead. Please do not grieve. Please know that, as Sweet Potato or Dancing Cross, I loved you from the bottom of my heart. As you are reading this, I have appeared on the outskirts of Baltimore and will be raised by a nice couple on their farm. I found the Cadence Cross buried in one of their fields one day. Your contact with it healed me and sent me back in time. Me finding it reawoke my memories. Dear brother in destiny, Mom, Silver Cross, this is not the first time that all of this has happened. I am maybe the only one of us cross-bearers that really understands it all, because my memories get restored each time this event reoccurs. Each time you find the Cadence Cross and I am sent back and find my own cross, my memories will reawaken. We have been through this more than 1,000 times already, Silver. Each time I tried a different approach. Sometimes I protected you from any danger. Sometimes I stayed in the shadows and watched as you were torn to pieces in Huntington. My death always came in different ways as well. Sometimes I am killed by you. Sometimes Broken gets the better of me. In a few instances I even tried to confront the nightmare all by myself and got killed in the process. Silver, what you must understand is that the Alicorns of old had the power of creation on their side. They cast a spell to create the crosses and give them the ability to travel through time if need be. That spell, however, had a side effect. Once all of us are dead, corrupted, or unable to fulfill our destiny, time loops back to the day you received your very first case in Huntington. The spell, however, is growing weaker and weaker with every cycle. I predict that this is our last chance to get it right. If we screw this up, then all is lost. In love and loyalty, Dancing Cross. Okay, before anyone is now asking for my head on a silver platter, please remember this story is not yet resolved. It took me a long time to get this done. I know it's short, and it's short because it's a chapter just to explain some things, to get this thing with finally this thing explained with Key and with Dancing Cross actually being sweet potato pie. That's what I wanted to explain here. And just for those who are now calling for my head because Dancing Cross and Silver Cross had a kind of a relationship with one another, please remember that Dancing Cross, or aka Sweet Potato, was adopted. And she only lived with Silver for about 1.5 years. So, yeah. I hope to get the next part done faster. And